Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to another episode of Electric Air Mobility News. I am Nicholas Zard. I'm the founder and CEO of Electric Air Mobility, a company that offers solutions around vertiport infrastructure and energy management around the world. We have a few projects, and hopefully soon enough we'll be able to talk about it. I wanted to tell you that I'm excited about this story today because now we're starting a new chapter of Electric Air Mobility News. Up until now, we really had a lot of broad strokes. You know, what is AAM? What is UAM? Regional air mobility. What is the difference between an eVTOL, an eSTOL, an eCTOL? What is a vertiport? And just simply enough, the last series, what is the evolution of mobility for human beings? And I hope you've enjoyed this because I try to be a little bit humorous in there, and I know sometimes you shouldn't have too much of a humor. But now we finally get to dig into the news, and I think this news here that came out last week, and of course has repercussions until this week today. We're what are we? Middle of May, May 14th, 2024, is very interesting because I've been in the electric mobility industry for almost 20 years, and I've seen this happen before, and it happened with electric vehicles. Now, if you go a little bit back towards back to 2007, 2010, there were a lot of startups, a lot of EV startups, and they had a lot of wonderful, tantalizing projects. And around that, they also had an energy ecosystem that they were offering with electric cars. And the smart people that I've known so far got their solar panels first, got their battery storage systems after, and then got an EV, which means today they're driving almost free on sunshine. So it was really a revelation, and of course, a lot of car makers were poo-pooing the idea because, well, that's not their bread and butter, right? Unfortunately, it had to be, and the powers that be are forcing everyone in that direction. I think it's fortunate, personally. So we saw a lot of these early companies, both in the EV industry and the advanced air mobility industry. These guys were the poster fanboys companies of the industries. These are the guys who went out there and said, we're going to do this, and it's possible, despite people laughing at them, criticizing them, making fun of them. It happens, but you know what? Eventually, the doers do, and the talkers just talk. So we saw that originally, and I'm not going to name names, but I think there were a lot of great companies that went under. I'm thinking Coda Automotive had a really wonderful, brilliant system. Yeah, the car wasn't very exciting, but the technology behind was. But still, somehow along the lines, companies like Tesla did a really good job in the end. And by the way, I'm going to have a really good article on the difference between Joby and Archer, because there's a lot of interesting differences there. And there's a lot to learn from Tesla and SpaceX. Good things to learn and things to avoid, obviously. So today, last week, two big pioneers in the industry, both from Germany, Volocopter and Lilium, said to the German government, enough is enough. You're only investing 2% of our funds, of our money, and you give us almost nothing in return. So Lilium went as far as now saying that they're talking to France for a manufacturing plant in France. That's big. And by the way, originally I'm French, so I know what it's like to work in France, and it's a great country, and I love that country, there's no doubt about it, but it also has some very big pitfalls. You know, unions are very strong, and they can block the entire, virtually bring the entire country to a grinding halt if something goes wrong. So it's a dicey thing to tell your government to say, hey, so long, you guys are not helping us, we're going to go to France. I hope it works. I hope it works well for the entire industry, but there are some pitfalls with that. So specifically, Klaus Rohe, who is the CEO of Lilium, says, hey, this is crazy, German government. You've only invested 2% of our money, and you want us to continue heralding, the almighty German manufacturing might. Well, no, only 20% of your employees are German. So when you consider how in the US and in China, Lilium's competitors, Joby, Archer, everybody else in the US, are getting hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, of course, not all of them individually, but all together, including green technologies and everything. at least so far with this administration. Who knows what's going to happen with the next administration? But they're saying it's impossible for us to be competitive like that. And they also, Klaus also said something that was very interesting. The Bavarian state government said that they guaranteed up to 100 million euros late last year, but nothing came out of it. So it's very interesting that both of these guys are going straight up at the same time to say, hey, this is crazy. And Dirk Hoke, who is the Hoke, actually, if you have to say it the German way. Yeah, I guess we shouldn't say Hoke. That's not really good. Huh? Hoke is much better. Volocopter CEO also says the same thing. Hey, we're going to become insolvent, okay, if this continues. And I know a lot of people in both companies are great people. They're doing a great job. Very different, but great job. Volocopter more on the UAM side of things. Lilium, yeah, on the UAM side of things, and most likely will do much better on the regional air mobility side of things, the longer distance. But Dirk also says, hey, we're gonna be insolvent if this continues, and might as well sell off to foreign investors. Anybody have a few $1 billion lying around? Let me know. So he says that they both said that, if Lilium moves away, if Volocopter sells to, and obviously what we're thinking, not out loud, is Chinese investors might come in and take Volocopter. They already took Terrafugia, they already took Volvo, they took a lot of companies. And for the most part, most of these companies have done quite well and have been left alone. But this is what Volocopter is telling the government. And Lilium says, look, considering opening a manufacturing plant in France, seeking more favorable condition and support is normal. But this will be a brain drain and a loss of innovative startups for Germany if they relocate. So you can see here, there's a little bit of arm wrestling. And it's very interesting because we've seen that before. I remember a wonderful company that was absolutely amazing, AFS Trinity. They had, back in, I think it was 2007, 2008, they had a Saturn SUV that had been fitted with an extra, so it was a hybrid. It already had a lithium-ion battery pack, but it also had super caps, ultra caps at the time. And you could actually choose, talk about beautiful, you could choose to run the SUV in full gasoline mode, no electricity, or in full hybrid mode, or in electricity only. Remember, this was back in 2007, or almost no hybrid or even plug-in hybrids where you can do this to this day. Correct me if I'm wrong. So these companies were wonderful, but they were shunned by other companies, and very badly they were. It was really pretty bad what happened. And that was my phone because I forgot to turn it off. So the race to dominate the eVTOL industry is obviously intensifying. Please stay tuned for my next article. We're going to hear from Joby and hopefully Archer if they have time to reply. But it's happening everywhere with companies around the world trying to get a piece of the pie. And the support from government and investors is crucial, especially now that we're getting into this long stretch of the game. The next 4 to 5 years are the hardest years these eVTOL companies have to face because they've already gotten the bulk of their money. They're burning through a lot of cash. Obviously, designing certification is extremely expensive. And if you think getting certified for a prototype is difficult, wait till you see what it is for mass manufactured aircraft. Exponentially more, longer, and more expensive. So they're really struggling. The Germans are really struggling to keep up with the US and Chinese, and I wonder how much that means also for Europe. So as I've reported before several times over here in Clean Technica, lots of other places, Vertical Flight Society, we really have an interesting case now where the U.S. is going head-to-head, butting heads again with China, with tariffs on solar panels. There's a lot of protectionism here in Europe, even in the U.S. here again. Now we're seeing the onslaught of Chinese EVs that are, guess what? They're really good quality actually, and I can tell you all about it. But they're coming into Europe at 20% more affordable, sometimes even 25% more affordable. And the U.S. right now is saying no. It's quadrupling the price of Chinese-made EVs in the United States. And now we're starting to look into, is this protectionism? How well does this serve the industry? With an inflation that's really out of control, no one's really holding on to or trying to keep it down. It's really a disaster. I think it rose almost 4% again this month alone. So we really have a serious situation on our hands. Anyway, so This situation in Germany sheds light on the larger debate of protectionism and the need for government to foster innovations. I can't say that enough. And especially for Europe and myself, I was born in Europe. I understand the whole idea of a centralized government in Europe. Yes, makes a lot of sense. But we have to act faster than later, obviously. So, anyway, tell me what you think. Tell me, how do you see this panning out? It's definitely very interesting. We saw that happening previously in the EV industry, and Tesla got government money, by the way. And they didn't do it all on their own either, but a lot of other companies also did. So it's a very fine balance helping startups, and it's something I should know because I focused on startups for the last 17 years, and it's not a very economically fruitful endeavor, to say the least. Very quickly on the Chinese EVs. Back in 2018, 2019, I was in Guangzhou test driving Xpeng cars, and it was amazing to see their G4 fully electric car. At one point, all four of us get out of the car, and the driver said, "Hang on, we're going to park in that tight spot." He hit a button, the car went and parked itself without any input from the drivers. We actually, at the time, the P7 wasn't officially driving, but we got a very close look and a look inside, and it felt absolutely amazing. I would buy an Xpeng P7, no problem. We drove around with Neo EVs. We even saw a battery swapping station in Beijing. And I have to tell you, whatever view I had on electric cars, on Chinese cars, and especially EV cars, was shattered that day. It was quality, it was luxurious, and it was as good as most normal sedans and EV and SUV makers in Europe and in the US. So I can understand, but I'm not sure increasing fourfold tariffs on Chinese EVs is going to do all that much in the long run. Hope you've enjoyed this. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, and yeah, I'm still working on that Patreon site. Woohoo!